Welcome to a new and special segment that we're streaming called This Week in Jacksonville Plus. It's in addition to the conversations from our show that airs 9 a.m. on Sundays on Channel 4. So this is special content you will only see here on News 4 Jax Plus. Let's get started with Florida's Chief Financial Officer, the State Fire Marshal, Jimmy Patronis. Great to have you in Jacksonville to visit with us today. So legislative session, I know, ready to start here, coming up March 7th, already a lot of work underway. A lot of priorities. First thing I want to talk about, though, is a push concerning TikTok. So the state has kind of responded here. You put out this tweet. TikTok is digital fentanyl. It's targeting our kids, wants to turn them into junkies, stealing our data. So you're making it pretty clear here. Why is this? What's the concern that you and other folks in government have with TikTok?
So one, thank you for having me. It's really easy. You've got YouTube Shorts, similar to TikTok. You've got Instagram Reels, very similar to TikTok. But my boys, they play on those two products. They're not allowed to use TikTok. TikTok has we have zero oversight, zero control, any way to understand what China is doing with that data. So at least I've got the SEC, I've got the federal government, I've got the FCC, I've got those regulatory agencies that can oversee those social media platforms that have an existence in Florida. But my concern is if you're on one of our state university campuses and we're spending, tens of millions of dollars in research there, and because a grad student has TikTok on his phone, what's keeping that device from being accessed by a platform we know nothing about? Why take the risk? It should be banned at our universities.
Now, that ban, at least in your office, that started almost 2 years ago, 2020, April or something like that.
My office, we deal with a lot of sensitive issues, privileged information. We're doing the finances for the state of Florida. So again, I wanted to err on the side of caution with a platform that we know very little about, that we have zero oversight over. I don't see any need of taking the risk of allowing a foreign government to have electronic espionage in our state government. And at the same time, I look at it with our kids. I've seen my niece on TikTok. She will let her phone go dead and then she'll plug it up and continue using it. That's why I call it digital fentanyl. It is highly addictive, and I think it's just a destructive distraction.
Well, just some of my research to have this conversation today, I saw it. So at least 25 other states have already issued some form of prohibition of using that app, at least on state devices. And then some of the states, I saw Ohio and Texas, pointed to China's 2017 National Intelligence Law. I didn't realize this. It requires companies registered in their region to assist in intelligence gathering.
Yeah.
So it's not something that it seems like this is not a partisan thing. This is, nationally, we should be concerned with our security, right?
Yeah, look, in China's, they're no dummies. If they can leverage U.S. companies or companies that want to do business in China by saying you're going to do this as a cost of business in the country of China, and you're going to be a part of our information gathering, our development of maybe possibly coming across intellectual properties, that's a concern. That's a concern. We spend a lot of money because all the innovation, in my opinion, and I feel like people, it comes from the United States. But you know what? It gets manufactured in China.
What are the arguments you expect to hear from folks who say, no, I don't want you to ban it at the university, or you're kind of infringing on my rights to say I can't use this product?
I think what you'll see the university saying, if you're at University of Florida and it's got its open Wi-Fi network, you won't be able to access TikTok from that Wi-Fi network. If you're at a University of Florida and you're plugged into their Ethernet, you won't be able to access it through it. So I won't be able to control what you access through your cellular data, but we're at least going to try everything we can to protect those universities and this incredible, generation of ideas that come out of our state system from being siphoned off by the Chinese government.
So I mentioned legislative session coming up here in March. This is something where, you're part of executive branch, but there's some work that you get to do kind of on the legislative side and find somebody in the House and Senate who say, we're for that and we'll introduce bills. What are some of the key priorities you have for this?
So the biggest thing is trying to protect our citizens from the overexpansion of the IRS. Back in the summer, there was the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't really think it did anything for lowering inflation, but part of the way of funding that particular boondoggle project was supersizing the IRS. 87,000 new IRS agents are expected to be hired due just to support the funding of that particular piece of legislation. So we've got a 4-tier process. We're going to make sure we protect Floridians. Right now, Florida's in the best financial health we've ever been in the history of the state of Florida. So wealth has moved here. It's moved here by the shape of billions. So we're billions of dollars to the good recurring in the state of Florida, where in the case of California, they're billions of dollars to the bad. So to me, the IRS is going to follow the money. I feel like small businesses, I mean, just the other day, they were going to target forcing reporting of any transaction of $600 or more. Well, they're targeting the gig worker. They're targeting the guy who's working for Uber Eats. You know, so at least Washington has backed off. They realize they're overreaching. But again, if this is going to be the new law of the land, I want to protect our Floridians to make sure they're not being targeted. And if they are being targeted, our legislation will actually help them protect themselves from being targeted. We saw it with the Tea Parties in 2015.
Well, your role, Chief Financial Officer, certainly you understand this. Give me your view. Isn't there, broadly speaking, isn't there a need for some accountability and enforcement? Hey, if you generated a taxable event, the state or the nation or whatever, we should be able to claim the taxes that you legitimately owe.
And there are plenty of laws on the books that already do that. Again, look, I think the IRS is just, as Congress passed this massive package back in August, they have got to be able to generate the revenue to fund those initiatives in that bill. This was on paper how they justified paying for those new expenditures, those new solar credits, those new rebates on electric vehicles. So again, my argument is that's fine. If that's the law we're going to live under, let me just make sure Floridians aren't being targeted.
So let's talk about something that's dear to you. I've seen in your role as state fire marshal, you spent a lot of time trying to say, hey, we need to protect first responders. And tell me what's happening specifically with PTSD and how you're trying to make a difference there.
So we learn something every year from every natural disaster. We learn something every year from just talking with our first responders. And so a class of category that has been overlooked with PTSD is the 911 operators and the crime scene investigators. With Hurricane...
Tough work, both of those things, right?
Yeah.
Tough.
So Hurricane Ian, I was in Sarasota County, and through that window of when Hurricane Ian was hitting the Gulf Coast, Sarasota County's 911 operators alone handled over 20,000 911 calls. They actually had people die on the phone with them. So it's got a different type of trauma. There's a side effect that we don't necessarily always know until the disaster strikes. It's no different than the crime scene investigators. They see things that are unnormal,
that most of us can't imagine. Right?
Yeah. So all we're asking is include them as a first responder class and make them eligible for the same PTSD benefits that our police officers, our sheriff's deputies, our firefighters or EMTs have access to.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is really daunting for the state, there's been insurance reform. We've had special sessions. We know that the insurance industry, property and casualty insurance, really in a tough spot here. What are some of the remedies that you see here? And I know some folks wouldn't necessarily understand AOBs, this assignment of benefits, but there's a crisis point there, isn't there?
Yeah, so you think about, you nailed it, AOB, assignment of benefits. So what's that mean? Kent, you have just assigned your benefits to a stranger. You have literally given whoever it is at your front door a blank check that could be written to you, but now it's going to be written to them by your insurance company. So we still see exploitation of AOBs when it comes to windshields. You will be approached at your Publix parking lot, and a fellow will say, "Hey, I'll replace your windshield."
I see a crack in it, right?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
And is there a crack or not? Maybe, but I'm going to give you a $300 Publix gift card, and while you come back out, I'm going to have a brand new windshield on it. So instead of billing your carrier $600 for the windshield, they send your carrier $1,300 because you assigned your benefits to them. So essentially, that contractor, you have just given him the ability to bill the insurance company whatever they want to bill.
Twice as much or whatever.
So then insurance rates go straight up. So that is a cost driver with our car insurance. Again, it's a loophole. It's perfectly legal. It's a loophole we need to close.
You spent some time serving in the legislature. Do you look forward to this time coming up in March?
Yeah, it's fun. Look, Northeast Florida, y'all have got amazing legislators. You really do. And what I love about the Florida legislature, it is still a part-time legislature. Those men and women leave their businesses, they leave their families, they go to Tallahassee for about 90 days, they have committees, but then they come home every weekend. They hear what's important to their constituents, and they go hammer out solutions. So again, never want to see the state of Florida in a full-time legislature. That just means full-time bureaucracy.
Full-time at work for people in Florida. State CFO Jimmy Patronis, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Kent.
All right, so you can in-depth interviews just like this one. It's in addition to our show that airs at 9 a.m. Sundays on Channel 4. This is special content you will only see here on News 4 Jax Plus.